Hello, this is Taylor Ellwood, and welcome to the latest video edition of Magical Experiments, where tonight we're going to be talking about the subject of what is wealth magic and how does it work. And I will mention I have written a book about this called Manifesting Wealth, which is available as an ebook, a print book, and an audiobook. So if you're really interested in learning more about how wealth magic works, go visit my website, Magical Experiments, and click on how magic works, and then scroll down to the wealth magic or manifesting wealth, and take a look at the book there, or certainly you can find it on pretty much any place where you would like to buy a book. So you might wonder, why is Taylor talking about the subject of wealth magic, other than the fact that he's written a book about it? I wrote that book a few years back. And it's a great question to ask. I'm writing about, or I'm doing this video about this topic because events in my life have occurred where, things are looking really good, that I will be back to being blissfully self-employed here within the year, which is really good, because about a year and a half ago, I had to go back to work. I'd been self-employed for 9 years, but the last couple of years I made some mistakes, and my business is tanked. And I went back to work, and it was hard. The first 6 to 7 months of that time, I just focused on working and on trying to just breathe and figure out what went wrong. I knew what had gone wrong. A lot of it was really me. I made some bad decisions, and I learned from some people that had some questionable values, and that carried through to my audience, and it alienated them. It alienated you, really. And it was tough, And then 6, 7 months in, I realized, I don't want to do this job for the rest of my life. My efforts to find better work than what I'm doing is not paying off. I've been self-employed for too long. It was basically the reality of it. I trying to get back into tech writing after 9 years of being self-employed wasn't working, because even though I could write, I didn't have the technical skills that they wanted. And so I realized, there was a very real chance that I was going to be doing this job for the rest of my life. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So what I started doing is I started looking at what I could do to get myself out of this situation. And, I did some research. I realized, I really want to be back on my own schedule. I love being self-employed. I love living on my own schedule, doing what I want. That's a huge part of what I consider to be wealth. And so I basically decided to explore publishing my own books. I took 2 book ideas that I'd basically written classes for, and I turned them into books, and I self-published them after I learned a ton about how self-publishing works. And lo and behold, I found that within the first couple of months, I'm like, wow, this is really working. I'm making some money at this. And I decided to take all my books back from my publisher. And I did that in October of 2018. Actually, I did in September of 2018. I got everything republished in October of 2018. And since then, things have been steadily improving for me. And it looks like I will be able to be, thanks to all the work I've done and the skills that I'm learning and other things along those lines, it looks like I will be back to being self-employed within a year. Within a half a year, actually, if all things go really well. But I always like to be conservative and put some time in there for padding, because it's always smart to do that with anything. And along with all of this, my dad died earlier this year. And again, you might be like, well, what does that have to do with wealth magic? Well, what that has to do with wealth magic is I also inherited money from him. So needless to say, one of the things I've really had to do is spend some time re-educating myself. Hey, Jaylene, glad to have you here. Welcome. For those of you who watch these videos, they are live, but of course, sometimes people don't get to watch them till later. Jaylene just joined us live and commented, so hey, welcome. Anyway, so my father died, and I got I'm inheriting some money from him. I don't say I still don't have it yet because of the way the probate thing works, but that's actually been good for me because it's given me time to do some educating of myself. So, what does all this have to do with wealth magic? Why am I sharing with you all my life circumstances and it's to provide you some background here as to why I'm making this video in the first place. Here's the thing. When I wrote Manifesting Wealth a few years back, I wrote it because I saw a real gap out there in terms of wealth magic. All the books that I saw out there that were about wealth magic were all about how to were basically money magic books. Like, how can I get more money with my magical work? How can I do this? How can I do that? And I thought to myself when I read that, when I looked at those books and I read them, what I saw was really just very short-term books. They weren't teaching you wealth magic. They were teaching you how to get money. But they weren't teaching you what to do with that money. They weren't educating you or anything along those lines. And let's be honest here, most people, when they think about reading a book on finances and money, their eyes glaze over because it's not exactly a fun topic. It's a necessary topic. I would be the first to tell you that I recommend educating yourself about how money and finances work. But, people don't always want to do that. So that was one of the reasons I wrote Manifesting Wealth. The other reason I wrote it was because I wanted to present a holistic perspective on wealth. My feeling about wealth is that wealth is realistically something that it's not just about how much money you have and what you're doing with that money. It's also about the quality of your life, your health, what it is you're actually choosing to do with your life. All of those other very important things that I think a lot of people forget about and don't pay attention to because they think that, wealth is just about how much money you have. Don't get me wrong, having lots of money is nice, but it does not in and of itself guarantee a happy life. I have known people who have been fabulously rich and nonetheless led very miserable lives. Because all the money in the world didn't address the fundamental underlying dissatisfaction and emptiness in their lives. So when I look at wealth magic, I look at it from this holistic perspective of, are you meeting your basic survival needs? In other words, are you able to afford a house over your head? Can you buy food? Can you take care of paying the bills and doing all the essentials? Maslow's hierarchy, basically, right? Because if you can't meet those basic needs, then you certainly can't take care of anything else. And so that becomes the first concern. Can we meet our basic needs? And if the answer is yes, we can meet our basic needs. We can survive, not necessarily thrive. We can survive, but we don't necessarily thrive. Okay, well then we have a foundation for wealth magic. And you might say, well, wait a minute, a foundation for wealth magic, how can we have that if we're only surviving? And the answer to that is, if you're surviving, you're still doing better than a lot of other people are. Let's be honest here, a lot of people, not just in the world, but even in the United States, which is the country I live in, are not doing that great. They struggle even to survive. They face questions around where they should spend money, etc. And I would be the first to say that when you face such questions, it's not just a matter of becoming financially literate. Yes, that can help. Understanding how money works, understanding all those things can help you. But the reality too is that, if you grow up with a certain level of privilege, of access to resources, that is going to give you advantages that other people won't have. And I say this as a white male who has grown up in a lower middle class family. Like, I wouldn't say, my mom was poor, but like with my dad, he was definitely middle class. So, I grew up there first, then I lived with her. So, I've seen both sides of the coin, but at the same time, I've always had the basic needs met. And I can't say that's true for everyone that I've ever met. And so, let's just call a spade what it is. So all that said, I take a holistic view. Can you meet those basic needs? And if you can meet those basic needs, then you've addressed the first thing. Then the next level comes down to, having met those basic needs, what are some other things that I need to think about? Well, one of the other things you need to think about with wealth magic is, and just with wealth in general, is, do you actually proactively understand how to handle money? Now, I use that word proactive, and what I mean by that is not just reacting to situations coming your way. Like, lots of people will have situations come their way in their lives. Some stuff will happen to them, and they'll be like, okay, I got to react to this and try to solve it. This is actually a huge problem in magic in general, which is a topic for another time and a book I plan to write. But what it really comes right down to is, when you're reacting to life, when you're reacting to problems that come your way, everything else, you're not living proactively. You're waiting for things to happen to you. You have no control. You're just waiting for things to happen, and you're trying to scramble to get control. So if we take a proactive approach to life, we're really sitting down and we're looking at the quality of our lives, and we're asking ourselves, what can I do to get me from point A being I've got the basic needs met, to point, let's just say B, where not only do I have the basic needs met, but I'm putting some money aside, I'm spending time exercising, I'm doing some other things with my life, to point C, I'm able to live my life on my terms. I'm able to do what I want. I may not necessarily have tons of money, but I can live independently and I can do as I please, and I know that my future is secure. Okay? Getting from point A to point B is its own challenges, and getting from point B to point C has its own challenges. They are not necessarily easy, and some of it, honestly, in some ways, is determined as much just by what life happens to throw your way and how you take advantage of those opportunities as anything else. I would say that the part of wealth magic is that you have to learn how to build a tolerance toward risk. No risk, no reward is an apt statement. And when I talk about risk, I think about risk in terms of calculated risk. Like, you look at your situation and you calculate whether or not you can pull it off. And if you don't have a lot of tolerance for risk, then you need to understand that and plan accordingly. And if you have some tolerance for risk, then you need to understand that and plan for it. And tolerance for risk isn't just dependent upon what your age is and what your financial circumstances are, though those things are certainly important. It's also dependent upon your personality. Like, I'm a person who has no problem taking risks. Okay, I'm a person who went like most of the way through a doctorate program, then dropped out because it was not the right fit for me, then moved all the way across the country to the West Coast to see, because I wanted to be with this one person, got a job, then a couple years later got into coaching and decided to try my hand at self-employment, and did this through my late 20s through my 30s. So I have a tolerance for risk in terms of the choices that I make that some people will not have. Other people will be like, well, no, you know what? I want a stable job. I want to be able to sock money away every month. I want to know everything's going to be okay. And that's my tolerance for risk. And that's okay. No judgment here on my part, and towards you or anyone else. I'm the kind of person who, even in my middle age now, supposedly, I don't really feel middle-aged, but hey, even so, I have a tolerance for risk where I am perfectly comfortable going back down that ride of entrepreneurship and self-employment. So, that's been my goal for the last couple of years, is what can I do to get back to where I was and do better? What can I learn from my failures? And that's a huge thing that I think plays a role in wealth magic as well. You have to be willing to learn from your failures, right? Because the fact of the matter is, you are going to fail. And people who are more risk adverse are going to also be uncomfortable with failure, in my experience. Again, no judgment on you, but the fact of the matter is, if you're not comfortable with failing, if you're not comfortable with sometimes, hitting bottom, then your approach to wealth magic is going to naturally be more conservative, and your approach to wealth in general is going to be more conservative than someone like myself, where I'm going to be willing to take some risks because I've failed multiple times in my life and I'm totally comfortable with it. And I know that I will eventually succeed because I do find my way toward that. And then I'll fail again, then I'll succeed, et cetera, et cetera. That is part of oddly enough, proactive wealth magic. You might say, well, why would you plan for failure and all that? Because life happens, right? Failure happens. Failure is a part of life. And if you're not comfortable with that, my recommendation is, no matter how conservative you are in your approach to life, and I don't mean political conservative, I mean in terms of how you handle wealth and everything else, get comfortable with failing. Because inevitably you will fail. That's just part of life. And failure is not a bad thing. Failure is a good thing. Failure is healthy, as long as you're willing to learn from it. I'm willing to learn from failure. I mean, I had one of the hardest lessons a couple years ago. I failed at everything I did. And lo and behold, here I am trying again, because that's my approach to wealth magic. And by the way, for people who are on with me as this is going on, if you have questions about this topic, feel free to ask. I will answer them during the video. This video may end up running a little bit longer than usual because, well, it's an interesting topic. So, okay, we've established at this point that at the very basic, you need a very foundational level. At the foundational level, you need to be able to meet your basic needs in order to start even doing wealth magic. Next level is that you need to start being proactive. You need to start planning out your life. I always look at this as your life by design or magic by design. Like, what are you doing to plan your life by design in order to get you where you want to go? So when I look at that, I look at it in terms of not only what is it that I want to do with the rest of my life, but what is it I'm going to do to take care of myself so that I can continue to do what I want to do for the rest of my life. And when I look at how I'm taking care of myself, it's not just how much money am I socking away, it's how am I taking care of my health? What am I doing to take care of my physical being? Because let me tell you something, I noticed that that a lot of people in general are unhealthy. I am not. I am fortunate in that the last time I got sick was about 10 years ago. Literally, like, I get colds, but that's about the extent of it, and those don't even last very long. And a huge part of that is because of, again, proactive decisions that I've made around my health and what I do to take care of myself, including exercising, like going to the gym 5 days out of the week, doing moving meditation in the morning, doing meditation and magical work in the evening, some of which is obviously geared toward my magical experimentation, but a lot of it's also geared toward taking care of myself. And basically taking care of me and of course my neurotransmitter work and all that other stuff. So I don't look at wealth as just how much money you're making. I look at wealth as your health. How are you taking care of yourself? What are you doing to look out for yourself? How are you eating? Are you eating out all the time? Are you cooking for yourself? What else are you putting in your body? Are you smoking? Are you taking entheogens? Are you drinking? Are you doing none of the above? Are you doing a mixture of things where maybe you do drink a little bit but you don't do anything else? And again, no judgment on any of you. You make you're adults, make your own decisions, do what you got to do. But looking at these kinds of lifestyle aspects do play a role into what and what kind of wealth magic and really just how you approach your life in general. At this point, you might be saying, well, Taylor, when are we even getting to the wealth magic? You're talking about a lot of life things. Where's the magic aspect of this? And I'm getting there. Trust me. But the reason why I'm going in through all this other stuff is because my approach, as I've said before, is proactive. I am looking at everything you are setting yourself up, how you set yourself up. Because in general, my approach to magic is proactive. It used to be reactive, it's proactive. It's really on this principle of design. I want to design my magic to work and to get the results that I want it to get. to get me where I want to go. And a lot of that means taking a holistic, long-term look at what you are trying to do and what you are trying to accomplish. And this is something that you aren't going to see in most of the books out there on magic or in how most people approach magic, right? Because unfortunately, what we're taught is it's more important to get those results than it's important to look at the context of how you get those results and where you're going to go. Well, I can tell you otherwise. It's more important to get the context right so that when you do your magical work, you don't just get those results, but they stick and you're able to live your life the way you want to. And that's what I'm all about. I like to live my life the way that I want to. I live as I basically want to live my life 24/7 on my schedule, doing what I please. And I'll tell you, after the last year and a half of not being able to do that, I will never ever go back to that again. I can promise you that. And the reason why is because I am very purposely addressing the gaps, filling in, resolving the failure aspects, learning from them, and setting systems up that work to get me where I want to go. And that's the thing that you want to do with wealth magic. I was asked, because I did have some people had some questions, or a couple questions. So I'm going to address them in this. So, the questions that are asked was like, what are the myths and falsehoods? Well, I think I've kind of covered that. The myths really are, it's all about money, and so are the falsehoods. I would say, things that mess wealth magic up is that when people get too eager for the result and don't really take a look at the context, they don't plan what they're trying to do. Any book on finance, and really any book on any level of wealth that you read, will basically tell you that if you try to rush things, if you try to make things happen too quickly, you'll screw it up. This is why, like, if you look at any books in financing, they'll tell you you're playing a long-term game. Like for investing in stocks, you're playing a long-term game. You're not, the goal isn't to throw some money into stocks, make a bunch of money, and then pull it back out. You don't do it that way. You invest some money and you stick with it for the long term. You might make some changes, but really, ideally, if you've done your homework, you don't need to make many changes in what you're doing with your stocks because you've taken the time to really look at things. Really, with wealth magic, there's a lot more mundane work that's occurring than magical work. And this is the thing that people don't talk about. They don't talk about that mundane aspect because they don't think it's fun or whatever else, or because they want money quick. Well, it doesn't work that way. And if I've broken your heart about that, I apologize, but it's just the truth. I'm always going to shoot and be truthful with you because that's what you deserve from me. It's what you deserve from all the other people out there who are writing books about magic. And if they're not being honest with you, you deserve better. So, with that in mind, let's get to the actual magic. First things first, I'm going to recommend some entities. This was another question. What are some entities that are good to work with? One I work with a lot is Ganesh, who is who ironically enough, people think of him as the deity that destroys obstacles, but that's not quite true. Ganesh can remove obstacles, but Ganesh is also representative of obstacles. Like, he will throw into your path the obstacles you need to have in order for you to grow. He'll also help you remove obstacles. I work with him, and like in the context of my work, I work with him there to help me figure out what the obstacles are that are getting in the way of my customers, and then how can I solve those obstacles. And I've worked with him to figure out what my obstacles are and help me take a step back and figure out what I can do to resolve those obstacles. And that's been really helpful over the last year and a half, because previously, when things kind of failed, one of the biggest things I realized was that I was my own blind spot. I was not paying attention to what I was doing wrong. I was so focused on a specific result, and I wasn't taking the time to take a holistic look. That was where my failure was when it came to my wealth magic and my life, is that I was too blinded by what I wanted, and I didn't remove those blindfolds and really take a look at what I needed to see. So I did that, and Ganesh was pivotal in that. I worked with Bune for a while, and there were some positive aspects to it. Bune's a goetic demon. He did introduce me to the idea that, for example, I should look at, how I could take magical experiments and turn it into something that was more than just about books, that, you know, I could teach classes and do other things and turn it into a viable stream of side income. But in the long run, I found that with Boone, you know, some of the opportunities that he pointed me toward were really not that good for me. And I came away with the realization that I'd come to rely upon him too much. And that's what I would also share. Like, any spirits you work with wealth magic wise, they're going to have an expectation with them that, you know, you have to be willing to help yourself. And they're only going to help you so far before it's going to be like, well, you know, I've helped you and you're really not getting this. I'm going to point you in some directions that'll help you get this, but you may not like the lesson you learn. That's basically what ended up happening with Boone. You know, and that's more so on me than it is on him. But I realized that, and so what I did is I backed away, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just not going to work with him for a while, and I may never end up working with him again. You know, it was a hard lesson to learn, but I came away with the realization of, yeah, I relied upon you too much there, buddy, and I need to back away. So that's a realization with any wealth magic entity, and like with Ganesh, I've worked with him to some degree to help me be more aware, but like, in terms of everything I'm doing right now, wealth magic wise, and just in learning wealth, that's really just all me. I'm not relying upon on him for that. He's helped me become aware of the problems, and that's the extent of what I needed. You know, I needed that outside assistance. Let's see. I'll just open up the book. I mean, I got it right here, right? Yeah, I know. I can't help but resist showing it, right? Let's see here. Ooh, what are some other spirits that we could work with? Because not that, like, I don't know. Well, you could create your own wealth magic entity. I've done that occasionally. I've had mixed results there. I mean, I created a sales entity that really just didn't work. I've created an opportunity entity that has worked. That opportunity entity has helped me become aware of massive amounts of opportunities. And I think that's a huge part of wealth magic, being able to recognize the opportunities and take advantage of them. Here we go. Well, you could work with Mammon. You could work with Aphrodite / Venus. That would be all about love and relationships, which, yes, is an essential part of your wealth magic. You want to have the right relationships in life, not just love relationships, but friendships and all that other stuff. I can tell you that a huge part of my success, besides the fact that I have this amazing, wonderful community in all of you, and you are a part of my success, because, you know, when the fact of the matter is, I wouldn't be where I'm at without you. And I'm so thankful to all of you for that. But a huge part of my success are the friends that I have, that I connect with regularly. It's my partner. It's you know, really working with those people has helped me improve my life so many times. And again, you know, it's, you know, changing my relationship with this community that I'm a part of and that I've created around my work has also been a huge part of that. So, you know, that's an important thing. You could work with Hades and Pluto. You could work with Lakshmi. Really, there's lots of entities out there. Do your own research, figure out which is a good fit, but remember not to rely upon them too much. Practical magic wise, you might say, so what do you do, Taylor, for that? And here's what I do in terms of wealth magic, practical magic wise. I don't do magic for money. I don't. And here's why. I find that magic for money typically is very short term. When people focus on money, what they're not doing is they're not focusing on what they really want. And what they really want is what the money will help them do. So what I focus on is I focus on doing magic for what the real result is. What are the real consequences? In my case, of late, my magical work has focused around my books taking off and being discovered more and more by people, and me being able to start up my second writing career along the lines of my fiction, which is, you know, underway. A lot of my magic focuses around the plans that I create. So I will create plans and I will put a lot of magic into those plans. And then what I will do is I will start executing upon those plans. And as I execute upon them, the plans will open up possibilities and opportunities for me. That's where a lot of my wealth magic is focused on. So that's really what I would recommend to any and all of you. with your wealth magic is take an approach where you are not just looking at the money that you want to get. Look at where you want to go with your life, what you want to do to take care of yourself. Take out a piece of paper and start writing down, like, what is it I want for my life? Not just how much money you want to make, but what do you want to be doing with your life? How do you want to do it? How do you want to live? What do you need? Yes, monetarily, but what do you need from yourself when it comes to your health? What do you need when it comes to your relationships? What do you need when it comes to what you're going to do with that money? Create your plans around that. Decide how much risk you're willing to take, and then start executing upon those plans. That's effective wealth magic. And I might add, that's what you're not going to really find out there in most of the books that talk about that. You're going to find it in reading books on finance. And if you're into being self-employed, books on business, you're going to find it with all that stuff. You'll find some of it with wealth magic stuff, but for the most part, I find, again, people are more focused on trying to get money, and that's what most of those books are about. Don't look at it that way. Don't be short-termed. Be long-term. Look at the scale of your life. Where do you want to be up until you die? And look past that. Where do you want your descendants to be? That's real wealth magic. When you can plan for that, when you can plan across the span of your lifestyle and beyond, and you can start executing upon that plan, that's when you're doing effective wealth magic. Anything else is not going to be effective. All right, that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the questions. I love it when you guys ask questions. It just makes these even more fun. And if you have any further questions, feel free to comment in the video. And I'll see you around. Take care.